We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Tuesday night edition, Air Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Air Torres. Hope everybody. Mike, how does it sound? How does the mic sound? Good? Testing good? Testing good? Thumbs up? Welcome in, everybody. Tuesday afternoon edition, Air Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Air Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. We are, about an hour away from the unofficial start to the NCAA tournament. We do have that first 4 set of games today. I'll be honest, really, I like the first 4, but Thursday is the day of the NCAA tournament. Today, we're going to have some fun, and we're going to do some news and notes with college hoops that are not really related to the tournament. By the way, if you want more bracket breakdown, Wednesday morning, that is when I will give all of my official picks. I will pick every single game. We'll probably do that about 11 a.m. Eastern time, and the thought being it gets 24 hours to consume it, to digest it. So tonight, no real bracket breakdown. Instead, we're going to discuss 3 very interesting topics. The first one, Alabama basketball, biting my tongue, trying not to be mean to the Crimson Tide. They got so mad about when I yelled about Charles Bediako. This Aden Holloway situation is not great, though. We'll discuss that. What does it mean? And who is responsible at Alabama? Is it a Nate Oates thing? Is it a Greg Byrne thing? We'll discuss that. You all saw this crazy Yaxel Lendeborg report. Yaxel Lendeborg, the star of Michigan basketball, saying that Kentucky offered him between $7 and $9 million to come play basketball at Kentucky. And of course, the portal not technically open for several weeks, but with seasons ending, with coaches being fired, there's already some very intriguing names that I think you need to know, that we now know are going to transfer. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. One, make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. Let's be totally transparent here. It's March. We're going to be live basically every single day from now until well after the Final Four, between games and tournament and portal and March Madness. Make sure you're subscribed. Turn on the notifications so you know when we go live. And if you listen on Apple and Spotify, you can find us there as well. Also, before we get started, people, we got ourselves our Aaron Torres Pod Survivor Pool NCAA tournament style. If you have not signed up, what are you doing? Bottom line is that we have done a March Madness Survivor Pool for the 2nd straight year, okay? Survivor, to me, is the new bracket, right? We all fill out brackets, but you forget who you picked. If you lose one, Survivor is so much better. For those of you who have never done it, it is very simple. All you have to do is pick one game every single day. The only catch, by the way, is that you can't pick the same team twice, right? So it's very simple. If you like Michigan, if you like Arizona, if you like UConn, if you like Arkansas to win the national championship, you cannot pick them twice. So once you pick them, if they win, you advance, but you can't use them again. So you have to be very strategic in how you go ahead picking your teams. We are giving away thousands in cash prizes. Last year, first place won over $1,000. and we need you to enter. So click that QR code right on your screen. You can see it there. I just saw a bunch of you go ahead and click that QR code. But if you have not entered, you got to do it. We even extend it into Thursday, so you have until the game start on Thursday to go ahead and enter. But we are at about 40 or so people that have entered. That's about $1,000 in cash prizes. I think we can get to easily 150, 200 people. Share with your friends. Tell your friends. Click that QR code. Again, Aaron Torres Pod, NCAA Tournament Survivor Pool. It's the new way to do it. Last year, our winner took home over $1,000 in cash prizes. This year, it could be you, but you can't do it if you don't enter. Click that Survivor Pool. Again, $25 to enter, over $1,000 given away to our first place winner. With that said, it is a busy middle of the week here on a Tuesday. There is no more time to waste, so folks, let's do it. Let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, if you just joined us, we're going to do our full bracket breakdown on Wednesday morning. Okay, we're going to pick every single team, probably about 11 a.m. Eastern time, pick by pick, region by region. So that way, if you can't join us live at 11 a.m. Eastern, you can watch it throughout the day. You can consume throughout the day. Today, though, we're going to get to some news and notes around college basketball. And there is no bigger news and no bigger note than one of Alabama's star players, very much not part of the Alabama basketball program, at least right now. Okay, so Alabama, it has certainly been an interesting couple weeks, months, years under Nate Oates. I have largely been a Nate Oates defender because I believe he is an excellent basketball coach. But clearly there was the Charles Bediako thing. Now, to be abundantly clear, that was not a legal matter. That was a personal matter. He wanted to come back. I disagreed. He wasn't eligible. We argued about it on this show. Alabama fans were saying all sorts of mean things to me. But on a much more serious note, we got some really wild news on Monday. Aden Holloway, Alabama's second leading scorer, almost 18 points per game, arrested on felony marijuana possession. I want to be very careful how I say this because it is not good. It is not pretty. I think it is safe to say his Alabama time is over for this season, maybe for his career, and maybe it's looking even worse big picture for him. So let's go ahead and discuss all of this. And I think really, by the way, just so everybody knows, this isn't going to be a moral high ground thing, but it will be a who is responsible at Alabama for the behavior of these players. Is it Nate Oates? Is it Greg Byrne? Is it the players? So let's discuss. So first of all, again, I'm going to be very careful how I say this because this is all allegations. It's going through the legal system, innocent until proven guilty. We understand that, okay? But Aden Holloway, as I said, averaging just under 18 points per game. As I said, arrested on felony drug possession charges on Monday. This straight from ESPN.com. Quote, he has been charged with a Class C felony drug possession charge, quote, not for personal use, and a failure to affix a tax stamp charge. They are both felonies and carry a maximum of 10 years in jail and a $15,000 fine. I thought it was interesting. After the fact, we found out on Tuesday that when his apartment or his house or whatever was searched, that he was in possession of, let me make sure that I have all of the numbers correct, 2.1 pounds of marijuana. Why that is noteworthy, 2.2 pounds becomes an automatic felony with automatic jail time charges. And so you are talking about a very serious issue at Alabama that we do not take lightly, okay? And so first of all, before we get into the Alabama side of things, let me start by saying this. I understand that, young people make mistakes. And I am not here to get on my moral high ground and pretend that when I was 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, that I did not do stupid stuff, okay? But there is a difference between having a few beers when you're not. I'm not going to start equating what's good and what's not. What I will say is 2.1 pounds of marijuana is not, and again, we live in 2026. I understand that, recreational use, medical use, there are reasons to be in possession of marijuana in 2026. But like I said, take aside my personal opinion, 2.2 pounds of marijuana is a felony charge. He was found allegedly, and again, this is all alleged, with 2.1 pounds of marijuana. It is not pretty. And like I said, I don't think this is a great sign for the Alabama basketball program. Okay, so first of all, let's get this part out of the way. On late Monday, after the story came out, Alabama said that he was no longer part of the campus community. And Nate Oates did have his weekly coaches show where he addressed this. Matt, you're one step ahead of me. Let's go ahead and pop up what Nate Oates said on his coaches show on Monday night. He said, quote, "We've got standards in our program. We've got ways we've held our guys accountable. We try to keep everything in-house. Obviously, some of the situations you can't. This is one of those. The situation is a little bit different. When I found out this morning, when we found out what was going on this morning, I found out this morning. I guess it all went down this morning." He continued. He said, we had to suspend him pending the investigation by the UA Office of Student Conduct. We're disappointed in his behavior. With that said, we still love him. He's still our guy. We're going to get him the help that he needs, and we're going to continue to help him whatever way we can. It is worth noting, by the way, Nate Oates later said that he does not expect to have Aden Holloway available on Friday when Alabama takes on I don't even know who they play off the top of my I'm blanking. Who do they play? Hofstra. That's right. They play Hofstra. So Nate Oates is not expecting to have Aden Holloway, and I am personally not expecting to see him. Okay. And so first of all, I do think it is kind of worth noting. This is actually at this point, right? It's above Nate Oates' head. The Charles Bediako thing, you can argue, should he play? Should he not play? Should he be eligible? He entered the draft. That was a personal decision and an NCAA issue. In other words, Nate Oates, didn't have to clear it with the university, with admissions, with the police department. And I want to be clear because I know Alabama fans are going to get mad. I am not equating, to be clear, definitely not equating what happened with Charles Bediako to this. And so Nate Oates decided with Charles Bediako, I'm going full speed ahead. I don't care what the NCAA rules are. I'm doing it. I don't care. This is obviously a lot different, and this is above his head. As he said, it is with the university office. Aden Holloway is not with the team right now. And I think it's safe to say he certainly won't be there for the NCAA tournament. And I think it's safe to say, I think probably his Alabama career is over. And I think the only question now becomes if the allegations are found to be true. And, we all read the police reports, is a guy who was averaging 18 points per game next year looking at very serious jail time. So one, we will certainly break down the basketball ramifications on our preview show on Wednesday morning. Although we have such a good live crowd now, we might just go Wednesday afternoon. We'll figure it out. But at the same time, let me say this, is that I do think the bigger story to me is not Aden Holloway, okay? And it's not good. It's against the law. Again, he was found allegedly with 2.1 pounds of marijuana. 2.2, triggers automatic jail time. And so I only bring it up. This is not good for Aden Holloway. We all know that. And now I think the bigger question is, who needs to be held responsible for the actions of the basketball program? Listen, you don't need me to tell you, it has not been a good couple years for Alabama basketball, especially off the court. And I do think there comes a point where you can sit there and say, well, Nate Oates' job is to win basketball games. At some point, you are responsible for the people you bring to campus, okay? And what I would say, I want to be abundantly clear. If all of this stuff happened at any other school, I would be critical of that school. When we went through the Bediako stuff, and again, Bediako is not criminal in nature. It's just NCAA stuff. When we went through the Bediako stuff, I said, if that kid was playing for Tennessee, that kid was playing for Arkansas, we would be talking about this in the same way. And it's the same here. If all of this was happening at my alma mater, UConn, at Tennessee, at UCLA, at Florida, wherever, we would absolutely be talking about this in the same manner. And at some point, Nate Oates is responsible for the people that he has brought into this program. Remember, it's not just Aden Holloway and these allegations. I think most notably, we know about the situation. It's crazy. I was thinking about this. We call it the Brandon Miller situation. And the reason we call it the Brandon Miller situation is because Brandon Miller was a first-team All-American lottery pick, and we know, and that thing is still under trial, so it's all allegations, but we know that Brandon Miller allegedly brought a gun to a crime scene that ended tragically, to be abundantly clear, in a murder. What I think gets lost in that, though, is that one of the players allegedly involved in the murder was an Alabama basketball player named Darius Miles. And so, again, it's one, whatever. We good, Matt? Okay. I don't want to start equating. Are we live? Had some technical difficulties. Are we live right now? Okay, cool. All right. So I don't want to start equating one crime to another. But it isn't just the Aden Holloway situation. It isn't just Brandon Miller allegedly bringing a gun. It is a former Alabama basketball player also allegedly being involved in the death of that young woman in Tuscaloosa a few years ago. And so you go through all of this stuff. You add in, and again, for the last time, I understand Charles Bediako is not the same as this, but it was a bad moment for the university where they were playing a player that was clearly ineligible. It's just one thing after the other. And so a lot of this falls on Nate Oates, and I cannot wait to see what the chat has to say about this after the fact when we're done here. But then also, it doesn't just fall on Nate Oates, because here is my thing. At what point do we start holding Greg Byrne, the athletic director at Alabama, responsible as well? Okay. Because at the end of the day, let me say this, is that Nate Oates, great basketball coach. I have tried not to criticize him because I don't want the off the court stuff, which up until this point was just Charles Bediako this season, to overwhelm the fact that he has done a good job coaching this team. But at some point, it falls on Nate Oates. But at some point, it falls on the person who hired him and who is writing his checks and who is allowing him to behave in the manner that he is and bring in the players that he has. And so to me, if you want to hold anybody responsible, it's Greg Byrne. Because let's be honest on this. Couple things. One, let's talk Bediako non-criminal situation. I said during that process, last time, it's not the same. I understand it's not criminal, okay? But I said during that process, I said, I am more embarrassed. I'm not even embarrassed for Nate Oates. I'm embarrassed for the university that they're allowing him to do this, that they're allowing him to bring back a 23-year-old who declared for the draft, went through the draft process, played professionally, was playing in a G League game a month before he made his second debut, or a week before he made his second debut with Alabama. I was just sitting there saying, like, at some point, it's not just Nate Oates. There's supposed to be a boss there that is telling him you can and cannot do that. And so some of this does fall on Greg Byrne as well. And I think at some point you have to hold him responsible, because again, this is now multiple major criminal allegations against this basketball team. You were playing an ineligible player against NCAA rules. At what point does Nate Oates' own boss have to step in and say enough is enough? At what point does Nate Oates' own boss have to step in and say, you know what? Either I have to vet the players that you're bringing in better, or you have to vet the players that you're bringing in better, or you cannot be my basketball coach because you continue to embarrass this university. And oh, by the way, it wasn't just Nate Oates. We know that a few years ago, the baseball coach at Alabama got caught up in a gambling scandal, and it's just been one thing after the other with this athletic department. So Nate Oates is responsible. But at the same time, you know who else is absolutely 100% responsible? That guy right there, Greg Byrne, as well. At some point, as the person who is representing the athletic department, you have to say, it is about winning. It is about getting to the NCAA tournament. I understand we're a football school. I understand. You can't embarrass the university like this by bringing these kids in. And so I've said what I had to say. This legal process will play out. As I've said a couple times now, I find it very hard to believe that Aden Holloway will ever play for Alabama again. And to me, two things. One, for that young man, we'll let the legal process play out. I don't know if there's jail time involved. I really don't. And then two, also on top of that, I will also mention that to me, the bigger story is some of this falls on Nate Oates, but a lot of this falls on his boss as well. Why are you allowing these players to come to campus? And certainly after the tragedy in 2023, where a young woman lost her life, you would think that there would be more vetting of the players that have been brought to campus. Apparently not. And once again, an Alabama basketball star is in trouble. And it is just bad news for this basketball program. But I also think it's a reflection on the leadership of the athletic department as well. And I think more than Nate Oates, I think it falls on Greg Byrne right there, the AD. All right, so what we're going to do, all sorts of technical difficulties. I appreciate everybody grinding through this. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to go ahead and come back. We're going to take some of your questions, some of your comments, and we're going to talk about some other interesting news and notes, to say the least, over the last couple of days. That crazy Yaxel Lendeborg, Kentucky story. What's the truth? What's not the truth? And then how about this? Transfer portal doesn't technically open for another few weeks. It ain't stopping people from telling us they're going to get into that portal. So we'll discuss the names that are already sort of technically in, but not really. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Cauley Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Cauley Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Cauley Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to CauleyPuffs.com. That's CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. One bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. CauleyPuffs.com gets you 15% off. Cauley Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Cauley Puffs. All right, everybody. Hi, Pat. Good to be back. Good to be back. Let's switch gears to a much more fun and much more, I don't want to say interesting, but we had to get a little serious to lead the show. Let's have some fun. Speaking of fun, you know what's fun? NCAA tournament now is about 2 days away from the full bracket starting. Folks, let's go ahead and join the Aaron Torres Pod Survivor Pool. Okay, so if you're just joining the show, we told you about it to lead the show, but Survivor is the new bracket. Like, everybody fills out a bracket, but then you forget, did I pick this team? And what about that team? It's too much work. It's too much whatever. Go ahead and join the Aaron Torres Pod Survivor Pool, okay? Survivor, it's simple and it's fun. All you got to do is pick one team every single day throughout the NCAA tournament, and all you got to do is pick them to win outright. The one catch, you can only pick every team once, right? So say you like Michigan, say you like Arizona, whoever it is, to win the national championship. You can only use them once. So you probably don't want to take Arizona on the first day of the tournament because you're going to need them later on. Same with Michigan, same with Arkansas, same with whoever it is that you like. So go ahead, click that QR code if you're watching on YouTube. If not, the link will be in the show description, and it is pinned to the top of the YouTube chat. We want all of you to join. Thousands in cash prizes. Last year, first prize took home well over $1,000. I think we can bump up that prize pool, but we cannot do it without you. By the way, should mention, you can enter up to 10 times. So you don't have to enter just once. You just click the QR code, sign up. You want to fill out more than one, fill out more than one. We've had a couple people sign up for 2, 3, 4 different Survivor brackets. So go ahead, click that QR code. Our Survivor pool, it is simple, it is fun. And guess what? You get to compete against me and take my cash for the Aaron Torres Pod Survivor pool. Before we get to Yaxel, Matt, let's go ahead and talk about our friends and our ticketing partners, SeatGeek. So SeatGeek is America's #1 ticketing app. Over 28 million downloads. And here's the thing. It's March. You guys probably want to go to some games. Maybe you're a Kentucky fan that wants to go to St. Louis. Maybe you're a UConn fan that wants to go to Philly. Maybe you're an Arkansas fan that's flying out to Portland. Maybe I still can't believe they got put in that regional. Well, guess what? If you want to see your team in person, you got to use our friends at SeatGeek. It is America's #1 ticketing app, over 28 million downloads. And what I love about SeatGeek is 2 things. One, every ticket on the app is rated 1 through 10. So if you are an Arkansas fan going to Portland, you've never been there, you don't know what to expect, here's the good news. Go to SeatGeek. They're going to tell you how good is the ticket, rate it 1 through 10. But you know what the best part about SeatGeek that I love is? They take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres Pod. If you go to SeatGeek.com or the SeatGeek app, and you use promo code Torres, that's promo code TORRES, you get $20 off your first purchase. Any ticket, any game, any round. Maybe you're an arrogant fan. You think your team's going to the Final Four. You want to get ahead on those tickets. Maybe you're looking at regional tickets. Maybe you're looking at tickets for the weekend if your team wins on Thursday and Friday. All you got to do, go to SeatGeek.com, SeatGeek app, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek app, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. Let's go ahead and get to some other news and notes from the week. Fun story, I guess, maybe, depending on who you're looking at and who you root for. Let's go ahead and talk about this crazy Yaxel Lendeborg story. Okay, so it is March. NCAA tournament's coming up. And, the thing that, having done this for a while, that's kind of crazy to me is that when March starts, you get all these people that don't normally cover college basketball that are coming in. They're doing stories. They're doing stuff that, you don't normally see, right? So I'm at the Final Four and you hear somebody from the New York Times, like, asking the most basic B question, basically, for lack of a better term, the most casual question. I remember like 3 or 4 years ago when Florida Atlantic with Dusty May was at the Final Four, Dusty May made some like offhand comment about, schools are already reaching out to my players about transferring. And it became like a big story. And it's like, yeah, we all know that. Anyway, I bring it up because there was a very interesting story that came out this week via the AP, courtesy of someone named Larry Lage. Now, I'm not here to criticize Larry Lage. I do not know him personally. I'm sure he's lovely. I am not super familiar with his work. It looks more like he looks more like a guy who covers stuff in Michigan more than a guy who covers Michigan basketball specifically. But he got some time with Yaxel Lendeborg, best player on Michigan, Big Ten Player of the Year, and what's especially worth noting, he was the #1 player in the transfer portal just 1 season ago. Well, I bring it up because Larry Lage, I think he was trying to do a story about like the feel-good story of Yaxel Lendeborg, didn't really have a traditional upbringing from a basketball perspective, started late, ended up at UAB, JUCO, all that stuff. The problem was the whole story seemed to essentially center around one quote, and that quote was about not just a bag that Kentucky was ready to drop on Yaxel Lendeborg last year, but several big duffel bags full of cash. Matt, you can go ahead and pop up the quote. So Yaxel Lendeborg, again, this was to Larry Lage of the AP, talking about how he ended up at Michigan, why he's excited to be there, why he's ready for an NCAA tournament run. Again, though, the entire story got hijacked by this one thing. Yaxel Lendeborg telling Larry Lage, quote, they started the number, talking about basically the NIL offer from the University of Kentucky. They started the number with $7 million to $9 million. They were pretty much just going off of on a route like, we'll pay him anything to get here. And then he explained why he turned it down to go to Michigan. Quote, I was raised without money and I went my whole life without it. Anything was going to make me super, super happy at the time. So again, it was supposed to be this feel-good story about Yaxel Lendeborg, this non-traditional background in the world of basketball, and it turned into Kentucky offered him between $7 and $9 million, and he took less to go to Michigan. So I've had roughly 20 people ask me about this story, 30 people ask me about this story. It's worth noting, by the way, I was on Colin Cowherd's show on Tuesday morning. Jason McIntyre was filling in. He asked me about this story. Well, what I will say is let me say this. I will defend Mark Pope. Since everyone says, oh, all you ever do, Torres, is criticize Mark Pope. I will defend Mark Pope. I do not believe that there was some Publishers Clearinghouse check for $9 million with a Kentucky logo on it sitting on the desk for Yaxel Lendeborg, but I don't necessarily think he lied either. So let me kind of just explain my takeaway on it, because again, you guys are asking me, and I know somebody's in the chat's going to be like, why are you even talking about this? But we're talking about it because you guys care. And it was a huge story that everybody was asking me about from one of the biggest national sports talk radio shows on down. So first off, let's talk Yaxel, okay? And so to me, this is the way that I perceived this story when I saw it. So what we have to remember is a couple things. One, portal's about to open in a few weeks. We're going to talk actually a little bit of portal to end the show. But at the same time, last year, not only was Yaxel the best player in the portal, and it has proven obviously out to be true, but it was a situation where he very clearly was going to be the best player for a very long time. Now, sometimes guys just enter and you don't really expect it. I could name a few that I think probably caught some people off guard last year. But Yaxel, and I've told this story, I was talking to a coaching staff, not Michigan, by the way, that in December was talking about the number one guy on our board is Yaxel Lendeborg. This would have been last December, so December of 24 into 25. So we were talking about 3 months before the transfer portal opened. People were already openly talking about he's the number one guy on our board, and essentially we want to build our entire 2025-2026 roster around him. So to be clear, I'm not accusing anyone of tampering. It certainly wasn't Michigan that I talked to, but it was clear that this was the guy that everyone expected to go into the portal, and if he went in, he was going to be a hot commodity. And so as far as the Kentucky recruitment, this is my perception of it. I'm guessing Yaxel went in. I'm guessing that he probably had an idea of 2 to 3 schools that he was ready to commit to. And I didn't have a chance to look this up, but if I remember correctly, the commitment happened really fast. Now, part of it was he knew he was going into the NBA draft, and so he was going to test the NBA waters. But I think pretty early on, he kind of had an idea of these are the schools that I would be interested in. So my perception of this story is this. He enters the portal. I believe, I could be mistaken on the timeline, so forgive me, but I believe he entered the portal on like a Wednesday morning. He committed Saturday morning at the Final Four. I remember because I woke up, may have been out a little bit late the night before. It was either Saturday or Sunday, so it was like a 3 or 4 day process. He goes into the portal and he commits very, very, very quickly. So my perception of this story is that probably Kentucky was on the outside of the recruitment from the beginning. He probably entered the portal knowing there were 3 or 4 schools that he was seriously considering. I would add, and I think this is a conversation about Kentucky, my guess is that they were maybe a little late to the table. I'm not criticizing Mark Pope, but this has been a conversation about Mark Pope of, does he know who's going into the portal? Does he understand what the market is? This is why it's such a big conversation about Kentucky hiring a GM. And so my perception of this is that Kentucky probably came to the table late, realized they were behind, and basically probably said something to the effect of, pick your number, whatever you want, we're happy to do it. And by the way, maybe there was even like a, what do you want, 7 million, 8 million, 9 million, whatever, just name your number. But to be clear, I don't think that Mark Pope had a Publishers Clearinghouse check for $8, $9, $10 million on the table for Yaxel Lendeborg. And I think Kentucky fans have rightly pushed back of like a lot of holes in this story. 7 to 9 is a big difference. That's, essentially a 30% markup. So is it 7? Is it 9? That's a big difference. And so we're not going to criticize Mark Pope, but I do think it is an interesting story, and there are a couple more thoughts on it, big picture. The first one, let me say this, and I've defended Mark Pope on this story. Now let me defend Yaxel as well. I love Yaxel Lendeborg because the thing I was thinking about this, and I told Jason McIntyre this on Colin Cowherd's show, is that what I love about Yaxel is if you know his backstory, he's relatively new to basketball. Didn't really start playing until he was about 17, 18 years old, goes the junior college route, goes to UAB. And so what I find very entertaining about him is that he is the type of guy, he doesn't have a bunch of media training. He's not, and I mean this in like an innocence kind of way. He's not like super polished when he's interviewing with people. And I was thinking about somebody like Cam Boozer, like AJ DeBonsa. Listen, I've interviewed AJ DeBonsa on this show, and producer Matt can attest to this. AJ DeBonsa is comfortable in front of the cameras, knows what to say, knows what not to say, knows what line to cross, knows what does it. And I'm sure it's the same for Cam Boozer and Darren Peterson and all these guys that have been in the spotlight since they were probably 12 or 13 years old. Yaxel's not one of those guys. And so I kind of enjoy that he kind of just says what's on the top of his mind every single time a camera's in front of him. Has done some great post-game interviews. We kind of saw that video before the Purdue game of him kind of saying we're going to go BTA on Purdue. So I have no problem with it. I don't think intentionally he said this to, one, make Kentucky look bad. To be clear, I don't think he did it to try to make him look good of like, oh, I turned down all this money because I want to come to Michigan. Let me also say this in defense of Kentucky. I don't know the exact number. I know for a fact that Yaxel was very well compensated at Michigan. So I don't know what the number is. I don't know what Kentucky actually offered, but I know that if I was guessing the number on the highest paid players in college basketball, and especially when you take out like true endorsements, I would guess from the collective, from the school, Yaxel's probably top 2, top 3, if not number 1 overall. So 1, I don't know how much Kentucky actually offered, but 2, he didn't take too much of a discount to go to Michigan. 3, I love that he just kind of says how he really feels in the moment. But also let me say this is and again, this isn't a pick on Mark Pope thing, but I do think it's a metaphor for why it's so important to have someone who handles the portal, handles NIL outside of the head coach, right? And so this is a big topic for people who don't know the Kentucky basketball scene of Kentucky is in the process, we believe, of hiring a quote-unquote basketball GM. And we've talked about it a few times on this show, but a lot of people say, well, what does the GM do? What is their actual role? We've talked about it. It's a little bit different everywhere else, but I only bring it up because this is kind of the importance of having a GM. So you know who's going to enter the portal. So you know what the market is for that player, what the asking price is going to be. You don't come in super low. You don't insult him. You don't insult your agent, the agent. You don't say something so low that they're not even going to consider you. This is the whole point of having a GM, not necessarily to evaluate players and not even necessarily to make offers, but to just know what the asking price is going to be, what the ballpark is, what other people are asking. And I do think this shows why that role is so important and why there is so much pressure on Mark Pope to fill that role before the portal opens. Because my understanding of the situation in Kentucky, I feel pretty confident. Like right now, I believe that if the portal opened today, which by the way, we're going to talk about in a minute, it's not technically open, but it sort of kind of is that if the portal opened today, my understanding, and by the way, if Mark Pope, if Jason Hart, if somebody sees this and I'm dead wrong, you can tell me. My understanding is Mark Pope is the only person that has final say on how much you can actually offer the player. So in other words, everything's got to go through Mark Pope, which it probably should in the final steps, but he's kind of taking, like he should come in at, step 8 and close through step 10. And I think he's doing step 1 through step 10 and has too much on his plate. So I could go on and on. I've said what I had to say. I'm not here to criticize Mark Pope, but he does have to fill that GM role. And I'm not here to criticize Yaxel. I love that he's an open book. Listen, we'll do our bracket picks tomorrow. I'm not rooting for Michigan to get to the Final Four, but I do think he would be a fun quote if we get him there. And so we will see what happens. Yaxel Lendeborg is a Michigan Wolverine. I don't believe that there was a Publishers Clearinghouse check for $9 million for Yaxel Lendeborg with a Kentucky logo on it. But it certainly was a story that, as I said, certainly made the rounds. All right. Let's go ahead and wrap with one more story. We'll close with questions. If you have questions or comments, drop them in the chat. But Yaxel Lendeborg was last year's darling of the portal. We just talked about it, but when the portal opened, he was the guy that everybody wanted. Well, fast forward, it's a different portal cycle this year, but it isn't stopping people from putting their name sort of in the portal and sort of not. So what I want to do is talk a little bit big picture of stuff with the portal, but then also I kind of want to get you some names to know that are sort of kind of technically entering, but not necessarily entering. And let me explain what I mean by that. Okay. So if you go back to last year, and by the way, how about you go back to the last episode of the Aden Torres pod that we did? Because on Sunday night, we did a live show. And I had some guy in the chat. I didn't see it until after the fact. Matt, I don't know if you saw this, but this guy asked me about 15 times, Torres, when does the portal open? Torres, when does the portal open? Torres, when does the portal open? And then he got mad at the end. He was like, why are you not answering my question? I don't even look at the chat while I'm doing my show because it's too distracting. I have too much ADD. I've got a goldfish brain, and I'll get distracted too easily, okay? The portal is different this year, though. Remember, really, go back. So 2 seasons ago, portal opened the day after conference tournaments, the day after Selection Sunday. That was a disaster. You had 68 teams playing for an NCAA championship. The portals, it was a mess. So last year, they opened it after the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament. And I'm trying to just give everybody context because I'm going to get this question a million times. Last year, it opened the weekend after the NCAA tournament's first 2 rounds were done. There's only 16 teams left, and there were still complaints. And I sort of understand them, but I sort of don't. Ironically, last year, the person that was outspoken about it being okay that the portal was open was actually a person that's not very popular right now, Bruce Pearl. He was sitting there saying, listen, team seasons ended 3 or 4 weeks ago in conference tournaments. I don't want to be the reason to keep them waiting. I'm happy to be one of the final 16 teams standing, whatever. So last year, the portal opened the day after the opening round of the tournament. This year, the portal is set to open the day after the NCAA tournament officially ends. Okay, so it's almost like college football, and I'll be quick and we'll get to some names that you need to know. But if you remember with college football was in the same situation. And they basically said, you know what? We don't want the portal overshadowing early in the playoff. Now, you have to, in football, it's a little different because of the calendar. But so basically, you had all of those quarterfinal games on January 1st, and then the portal opened January 2nd. But if you remember, you had team seasons ending, early December after the conference championships, and players were just announcing they're going in the portal. Dylan Raiola, DJ Lagway, guys like that. I remember entering the portal early to mid-December or announcing that they would be in the portal, but they couldn't technically enter until January 2nd. Well, it's the same with college basketball. That is a long-winded way of me saying that with the season ending for all of these teams, conference tournaments are over, coaches are getting fired. We're going to be down to 16 teams after this weekend, that basically you're going to start to see names come out about interest in the portal. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can enter the portal until after the NCAA tournament, but names are going to start to pop up, and there were a couple interesting ones over the last couple days. I want to get to a few, and I will reference this. We are going to get quite literally thousands of names, okay? So, you're going to get excited about these first couple, and then I promise you a week from now, there's going to be 500 new names. You're going to forget all about these guys. So, couple interesting names have already announced their intention to enter the portal when it opened, and I just want to discuss them very quickly. The first one, and you can find me talking about this guy during the season. There's a player named Stefan Vox who played at Providence this year, okay? And you can find tweets that I put out probably a month ago. And my personal stance on the portal is pretty straightforward, is that I don't talk about players entering the portal until they do. Like, I don't want to be the guy that says, who, if he enters the portal, will be the biggest name, and then I have a million fans tweeting at that kid, and maybe he's happy at the school. But I do think it's a little bit different when a player is on a team where there is very clearly going to be a coaching change. And I only bring it up because at Providence, it has been clear for many, 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 many weeks now that the coaching staff that is currently in place was not going to be there after the season. And so you go back to, I think it was when UConn hosted Providence at Gamble Pavilion, which was like early to mid-February. I said, if Stefan Vox enters the transfer portal, he will be a name to know. And on Tuesday, it officially came out. Now, again, he cannot enter the portal, but that when the portal opens, he will be in the portal. And much like Yaxel Lendeborg last year, there have been teams I know for a fact that have been scouting this kid for months, talking to his agent, doing whatever. He will be one of the most coveted players in the transfer portal. And I want to be fair, he is a very good player with very clear weaknesses, but whoever gets him is going to get a hell of a player. So Stefan Vox, for people who do not know, 6'7", big guard from Estonia. As a freshman in the Big East, averaged 16 points, 2.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 35% shooting from behind the three-point arc. Now, I want to be clear before I get to this next part. I'm going to give you a comp to his game, but I am not saying that he is as good or will ever be as good as the player I'm going to mention. But if you watch him enough, you can kind of see he's got a little bit of Luka Doncic to his game. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be a future NBA MVP and he's going to get traded and and he's going to be one of the 5 best players in the NBA. What I am saying, 6'7" guard, gets to all his spots. The dude averaged 16 points per game in the Big East this season as a freshman. And it is worth noting, I didn't send this to Matt, but it was one, people were talking about him as a future NBA player. Now, he's not there yet. But what I didn't send to Matt was he actually did an interview where, and I'm not trying to be funny when I say this, I don't know if there was a language barrier or I don't know if he just has the Yaxel Lendeborg, I'm too honest for my own good. But he basically acknowledged, like, I committed to Providence. I could have gone to a bigger name school, but I wanted to play right away, and I kind of knew they weren't going to be good. And so I just bring it up because he's certainly a character, and I will certainly say this. He is a phenomenal player, but I will also acknowledge that he is a player with flaws. If he was a perfect player, he would be going to the NBA, and we'd be talking about him with AJ DeBonsa and Caleb Wilson and all those guys, Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson. He is a great player, but a couple things. One, he is best with the ball in his hands. Okay, so I think that's going to limit, it should anyway, limit who recruits him and places that make sense for him. If you already have a point guard, or if you don't have a system where multiple players handle the ball, probably not going to be the right fit for you. Like, it's funny. I'll give you an example. I had an Arkansas fan reach out. What do you think about him with Jordan Smith Jr.? Jordan Smith Jr., who, congratulations, won the National High School Player of the Year on Tuesday. He is going to have the ball in his hands when he gets to Arkansas. He's 6'2", 6'3". He needs to prove that he can handle the ball and run an offense before he goes to the NBA. So if you have Jordan Smith Jr., I don't know that Stefan Vox is the player that you want with him. So if you have a point guard, I would say probably doesn't make sense. Now, the counter to that is, I think, a place like UConn, which generally at its best has had multiple ball handlers. You go back to 2 years ago when they won the championship, Tristan Newton, Steph Castle, Cam Spencer, all 3 could run the offense. I think that's a place that makes sense, even though they will likely have Silas Demery back. So I only bring it up because he is a very good player. But one, he's probably best with the ball in his hands. And 2, he does have some defensive limitations, a lot like Luka Doncic, actually. And again, I'm not saying he is Luka Doncic. What I am saying is that I do think there are a lot of parallels in how he plays. And also, I would add this, sort of the system that you have to build around him, okay? Because I was thinking about this, is that to me, what kind of stands out is that essentially, when you look at Vox, he is a guy that, I'm just going to say it, maybe not the best player defensively in the country. And so it's a lot like Luka, right? You kind of have to build a team around him where there's rim protection, where there's another elite defender. And so again, he's not a perfect player, because if he was, he'd be going to the NBA. But I do think he is going to be one of the best players to enter the portal this offseason. And if you need a lead guard, he is going to be a guy you go after. Again, you'll have to build a team around him that makes sense, that makes up for some of his defensive deficiencies. But my goodness, is he a good player? I'll just give you an example of like a system that I think he would fit in. And I'm not saying that I know that they're recruiting him, because I don't know if they're recruiting him, but like the way BYU plays, multiple ball handlers, movement, spacing, passing, this, that, it's an NBA style. It's a European style. Like, I think that makes sense. I don't know, conversely, that like Alabama, where they just want to run up and down and shoot a lot of threes, that one makes sense. So I hope you understand what kind of player he is. I'm just here to tell you he's really good. And I will also tell you, in the coming days, I would expect more players from Providence to enter the transfer portal or announce that they intend to. Now, again, whoever is the coach has the chance to re-recruit them, because they will be hiring a coach soon. There's talk about Brian Hodgson maybe going there instead of Syracuse. There will be a chance to re-recruit these guys. But if this kid enters the portal, if he stays in the portal, he is going to be as good as anybody. Providence has a couple other really intriguing players that we'll talk about if the moment arises. But as of right now, he's the only one at Providence. A couple other names to know, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on this because we got all April to discuss, but it's worth noting this. So Belmont is a very interesting school in the portal for two reasons. One, their coach, Casey Alexander, just left to take the Kansas State job. So that is the only that I know of high major job that I can think of off the top of my head that has filled its head coaching vacancy. Georgia Tech is open. Boston College is open. Providence, Syracuse are open. But the only one that's filled their job is Kansas State. Casey Alexander came from Belmont. And so now the players are like, my coach is gone, I'm getting out. It's also worth noting, by the way, Belmont has been a very good, do you want to call it a feeder system? I don't know, but they've done a really good job of evaluating players and getting good players there. Will Richard, who was part of Florida's national championship team, was there a few seasons ago. Cade Tyson, who went to North Carolina and then averaged like 20 a game at Minnesota this year, started there. So they've had good players. And since Casey Alexander announced his departure, two really intriguing names have announced that they plan to enter the portal. The first one, Matt, I forget which order I gave him to you, so just drop whoever you think, whoever I gave you first. Our guy, Drew Charnowski. Okay, so Drew Charnowski is an interesting name. You're going to look him up, you're going to look at his stats, and you're going to sit there and say, this guy averaged this many points at Belmont. How good could he be? Listen, it's about development. It's about evaluation. And remember, some of the best players at the high major level were not great when they were at the mid-major level. Remember, Ruben Chinyelu, who is at Florida now, began his career at Washington State. Now, admittedly, Washington State was in the Pac-12 at the time. He averaged 5-5 at Washington State. So I bring it up because Drew Charnowski is not a player that when you look at a stat sheet is going to jump out and you're going to be like, we have to have that guy. Then do yourself a favor and turn on, and you will see why people are so intrigued. He did, quote unquote, only average 11.5 points. He did, or 10.5 points. He did, quote unquote, only average 6 rebounds. But one, he did it in just 21 minutes a game. So you extrapolate that out. I'm not great at math, but that's 20 and 12 as far as I'm concerned, if you extrapolate it out over 40 minutes. And as you can see on the ticker, he was first team all Missouri Valley, even though he, quote unquote, only averaged 10-8 or 10-6, excuse me. But again, turn on the film. Super athletic. You can see it jumps right off the film of like, that dude is going to play at the high major level. And transparently, I think he's another one. If things go well, if things go right, it would not shock me to see him one day playing in the NBA. It's got to go right. He's got to pick the right school. It's got to be the right spot. But 6'9", jumps out of the gym, super athletic, finishes around the rim. And like I said, 11-6 in 21 minutes of play. Again, that's a 2010 guy if he plays a full season. Now, the three-point shot has to get better, whatever. But he is a name to follow. I would expect him at a high major school. It would not shock me if he ended up following Casey Alexander to Kansas State. Yes, I think he is a guy that could go into the Big 12 and contribute next year. And I think, by the way, he has only played 2 years. I could see him playing a year from now being good, and then the year after making a big leap. Remember, a lot of these mid-major guys, it takes a year to really get going. Ruben Chinyelu is basically an All-American his second year at Florida. Walter Clayton, it took his second year to really get going. Tristan Newton at UConn, even in Otega Owe went from really good player to like all SEC first team kind of player, and it was the second year. And so that is a guy to me that I think he will get to the high major level. He will be intriguing, and you get him that second season, it's going to be game on. Let's stay really quickly at Belmont because the Missouri Valley most outstanding player, Tyler Lundblade, also announced his intentions to enter the portal earlier this week. Tyler Lundblade, by the way, it is worth noting Belmont was the regular season conference champion in the Missouri Valley. Unfortunately, they were one and done at the conference tournament, so they were one of many one seeds that did not advance out of the conference tournament. And so I only bring it up because Tyler Lundblade, along with Drew Sharnowski, a difference maker and X factor at the mid-major level that I would expect to transfer up. He is a little bit smaller. He is not super athletic, but I do think that he can translate to the high major level. He has 1 year of eligibility left. He essentially basically didn't play his first 2 years. So he has 1 year of eligibility left, according to everything that I've read, and he's going to evaluate his options. Now, he doesn't seem like it's a sure thing that he goes to Kansas State, but to me, it would not shock me if that is where he ultimately ended up. This year at Belmont, averaged 16 points per game, 41% shooting from three. And so, I don't want to do the Bennett Sturts comparison, but Bennett Sturts was awesome at Drake last year in the Missouri Valley, transferred up, and he now led Iowa to the NCAA tournament this year. Can Tyler Lundblade do the same? Again, we're going to find out so much more information about all of these guys over the course of the next couple weeks. But my hunch is the first call, when he's allowed to take calls, I don't even know when, I would assume is going to be Casey Alexander, the new head coach at Kansas State, who also, by the way, coached him at Belmont. Really quickly, just a couple other names. I didn't even get these to Matt. This is a name that caught my eye. I watched a lot of the West Coast Conference. The West Coast Conference is where Santa Clara plays, Gonzaga, etc. Washington State has a bunch of really interesting players. There's one player that I think has a chance to be like one of the best players in the portal. He has not announced that he plans to leave yet, so I won't say his name. Washington State does have a player that did announce he is going into the portal. This would have been Monday. Rihards Vavers. If you are not familiar with Rihards Vavers, from Latvia originally, 6'7", stretch four type player. I mean, this is a guy, again, I don't think he is going to be the best player on any team that he transfers to, but 11.5 points per game this year, 41% three-point shooting. I'll just use a Kentucky example, the way that Mark Pope used an Andrew Carr last year, that big stretch four, the way that I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head, the way that Andrea Jelovich we expected to be used at Kentucky. That's the kind of player that he is. Stretch four, probably plays the three a little bit too, but he averaged 11.5 points per game, 41% shooting from three. I think he has a chance to be really good. And then just want to go ahead and give a quick shout out, unfortunately, to one of my home state schools, the Central Connecticut Blue Devils, who earlier this week, it was announced that the best player on that team, Darren Smith Jr., who was the conference player of the year, intends to transfer. 6'7", averaged 20 points per game, shot 37% from three, under-recruited guy who, another one who I don't know. I know he averaged 20 a game in the NEC. I don't think that equates to best player on your favorite power conference team next year. But I do think there is a possibility that he transfers up, has success next year, and I think I guess it would be the 27-28 season would have a chance to be really, really, really good. And let me before we get out of here, let me finish this segment by saying once again, portal does not open until the day after the national championship game, so essentially 3 weeks from today. But if you guys care and if you guys keep watching, we will keep talking about these guys as it is announced that they plan to enter the portal. And then I truly believe once the season ends and once the portal is officially open, it's going to be bang, 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 bang. Guys are going to know by the time the portal opens, guys are going to know where they want to go. Guys are maybe even going to be silently committed, and then it will be full speed ahead from there. Matt, before we get out of here, any interesting questions, comments from the chat? We covered a lot of grounds from Aden Holloway to Rihards Vavers. So what did I miss throughout the show here? Razorback Pride. By the way, shout out Razorback Pride. He is a member of the Aaron Torres pod community. If you want to become a member, $4.99 a month. It's just a little token of appreciation for this show. We put on a show essentially every single day, talking college sports. And if you want to help, we're going to be on the road this month. May have a trip in April that I cannot reveal yet. That would be pretty big after the season to do some really cool content. By the way, speaking of content, Matt, we'll do that in a second. But Razorback Pride is a member. If you want to be a member, just click that join button. It's $4.99 a month. Would never ask anyone to do it if you can't. But if you just want to do something small for the show, we greatly appreciate it. And we appreciate Razorback Pride, who asked, and this is about the Aden Holloway story. It's not just he said I said, who is to blame? He said, quote, "It's just the Alabama way. Can't get them in that much trouble. Hell, weed will be lost and charges will not be filed." So Razorback Pride is saying the police in Tuscaloosa will tamper with evidence and make it disappear. Who knows? I mean, listen, Razorback Pride, all I'll say is this. Nate Oates did not come out and say, like, we do not want him as part of the program. If you go back and read that quote that Nate Oates gave, it was, we're going to support him in any way that we possibly can. I mean, I don't even want to start getting into legalities because it's over my head and I also could get myself sued. But, Nate Oates did not shut the door on this is the most embarrassing moment in the history of the program. We'll never tolerate this sort of behavior. I mean, I think he made it pretty clear that if there is a legal way to get Aden Holloway back and get him back quickly, Nate Oates has no problem doing that. Anything else, Matt? Smells Good says Alabama is a messed up program. They win a lot. I don't think that we can argue that character does not feel. I'm not in the building every day. It does not feel like it is a priority for the folks at Alabama. I don't know what else there is to say. I think it's embarrassing. And I would also say, I'll get to that one and say, leave it up, Matt. No, you can leave it up. It's embarrassing, but it's, as I said, it's not just Nate Oates'. Like, where is Greg Byrne in all of this? Okay, so Smells Good also says these are, quote, young adults, quote, learning from grown adults. That's an interesting point. So I am not of they're young men, let them make mistakes. Listen, Aden Holloway is probably making $1 million at Alabama. I personally think if you want to indulge in after practice activities, let somebody else buy it. Let somebody else store it. I think there's a quote, and I don't have it in front of me, that, basically it was for his use only. I don't know enough about marijuana, and I'm not being sarcastic or funny. It's just not my thing. 2.1 pounds feels like a lot for you. And so I'm not of they're young adults, let them learn. No, listen, the law says that he could be in big trouble. And he's also a highly compensated college athlete. So I don't feel bad. Whatever happens, happens. I'm just here to say, Nate Oates did not seem to rule out the possibility that if somehow, some way they can get him back, they would. Keep it going. Stephen A. said, lay off the weed. Great line from Stephen A. Stephen A. gets a lot of crap, but that is an all-time classic line from Stephen A. What else we got, Matt? That is a lie about Yaxel Torres. Pam. What am I lying about? I guess it's what Yaxel said is a lie. Yeah, listen, for people who missed the Yaxel segment, we saw the report that he's alleged, he said that Kentucky offered between $7 and $9 million to get him to go there. My personal belief, I think they just said, what will it take? And there was probably, if they even gave a number, it was a sarcastic, what do you need? 7, 8, 9? What do you need? What do you name the price? I don't believe, like I said, that Mark Pope had a piece of paper, a Publishers Clearinghouse check with $9 million splattered across it. I don't buy that Yaxel lied about it, though. There's no reason for him to lie about it. So yeah, it was an interesting story. I don't think Yaxel was actively lying and actively trying to make Mark Pope look bad. What else we got? Maybe one more, Matt, and then we got to get out of here. Bammers Hacking Bros Pod. Yeah, we had some technical difficulties earlier. So, yeah, I think it was Alabama fans, or, it was maybe Greg Byrne not happy that I was saying the things that I was saying. It's actually really funny. I have a buddy named Ryan Fowler who hosts on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa, and he literally would not talk basketball until Nate Oates got there. And so there was one time somebody called in and asked a basketball question, and my phone went dead because it's a radio interview. And we used to joke that Ryan cut the mic because he at the time you weren't allowed to talk basketball. Now that was 6, 7, 8 years ago before Nate Oates got there, but it shows you how far they came. And yeah, I think it was Nate Oates or Aden Holloway's lawyer or whoever who hacked my mic. All right, I'll tell you what. Yes, okay. So Pam was not accusing me of lying. Pam was accusing me of exaggerating. Pam, by the way, I got your. By the way, Matt. We need to get a QR code because Pam ordered a Marches for Day Drinking t-shirt, and I found out that she got it in the mail today. So if you want yours, just click the QR code available at AaronTorresOnline.com/shop, AaronTorresOnline.com/shop. Marches for Day Drinking. We've sold a bunch of these. It's a fun tee to have during March, all of that. Marches for Day Drinking t-shirt. You can scan with your phone, with the camera, however you're watching this. Just click that QR code. It takes you right to the homepage. Very cool technology. Marches for Day Drinking, a fun t-shirt to have for March. And really quickly, before we get out of here, speaking of QR codes, one last time, if you have not signed up for the Aaron Torres Pod Survivor Pool, what are you doing? Survivor, it is the new way to go in March Madness, and it is just, it's simple, it's fun, it's efficient. Survivor, all you got to do, you don't have to fill out a bracket. You don't need, to know about a million different teams. All you have to do is pick one team every day to win outright. It is that simple. The only catch, as you can imagine, and there is a catch, is that you cannot pick the same team twice, right? So say you like Michigan to win the national championship. You don't believe Yaxel Lendeborg is a liar. You believe he's a $9 million a year player. Well, guess what? If you like Michigan, then what you got to do is make sure to save them for later in the tournament because you're going to need them. So you can only pick every team once, but click that QR code, sign up. We gave away over $1,000 to the winner last year. I think we can get up to even well beyond that this year. 25 to enter, up to 10 entries, so you can enter more than once. I know that I've already entered more than once. I've had a couple of you that have entered more than once, but click that QR code, and yeah, we're good to go. Hey, really quick for the chat, a couple things. One, we tomorrow night, we will reveal, we had a lot of fun at the Circa Sportsbook at Mint Kentucky Downs in Kentucky. We have a cool behind-the-scenes video, so make sure to come back for that. When you see that video, do me a favor, click on it, click the little like button. It really does help. We got to get that thing circulating. Matt did a great job. I was able to watch most of it today. This is the best place anywhere in the Kentucky, Nashville area to be watching games, so make sure to check that behind-the-scenes video, which will be available tomorrow night. And while we're still here, what is better for the audience? Because I was going to do our pick show at 11 a.m. Eastern time, but we had a very nice live audience today, and I am wondering if it is best to just come back at 6 or probably 5 Eastern tomorrow to do our official pick show. What time is better for you guys? I thought 5 might be too early for some of you, just getting off of work, whatever. But we have a great audience, and I don't know if everyone just came to bash Alabama and talk Yaxel. But let me know in the chat before we get out of here. Is this time better? Is early better? And as Norin says, the play-ins are starting here soon. So it is a nice time to kind of catch a college hoops audience that's ready to talk college hoops. I'll tell you what, maybe we will do that. So play-in games, let's see. The play-in games start. My computer, surprise, is going slow. All right, so the play-in games start at 6:40 Eastern. So I think the 5 o'clock may be good. I think we'll come back at 5 tomorrow, Matt. We'll come back at 5 Eastern, 4 Central. We will do our game by game pick preview. It's that simple. We're going to pick every single game in the bracket. If you have questions, get here early. We'll set up the chat early so you can drop your questions in. I think that 5 p.m. Eastern time works out really well, but also come back because we are going to have our preview of the Circa Sportsbook. It is an unbelievable place. You're going to want to check out that video. So thank you all for your support. I'm guessing we're going to go ahead and come back at this time tomorrow. Maybe there's a possibility that we come back early in the morning, but I'll tell you what, I do think for today, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Time for us to go. We appreciate your support, and it is time to go. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, UFED. Unblock me, bro. Sign up. Aaron Torres Pod Survivor. Aaron, the link's in the chat. Link will be in the show description. We appreciate your support. We will be back, and we will talk tomorrow at some point, probably in the evening time. We will go team by team in the bracket.